Hi everyone, this is Eagle News. I am EJ Gonzalez in Washington. It's the last Saturday of the year, December 30, 2023, here in the nation's capital. The week's recap begins with Americans seeking tougher gun laws after another school mass shooting, this time in Nevada. Las Vegas Bureau Chief Anna Cui has that story.
Since the recent shooting here at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, 19 more mass shootings have taken place in the U.S., according to the Gun Violence Archive. That number is anticipated to grow before the year 2023 comes to an end. The crime investigation is still ongoing and it's being led by Las Vegas Metro Police. University Police Chief Adam Garcia said they are challenged with piecing the events leading up to the shooting due to having no security cameras inside the building. This is one of the safety measures they plan to make in the near future. In the interim, Garcia said they will increase law enforcement staffing on campus grounds. While final exams were canceled and the university closed for the rest of the semester, a memorial was held to honor the victims, allowing the community to come together. UNLV is an open campus, and in light of this incident, some students now see it as a major safety concern. Here's UNLV President Dr. Keith Whitfield addressing the issue.
We sit in an interesting position that we're an urban research university. And what that means is that we really are connecting the community in a lot of different sorts of ways. I think sometimes when people are thinking about this issue of safety, they believe that if somehow we cordoned off or we made gates around all of ours, that we would make ourselves perfectly safe. And we know from other urban universities that's just not true. This particular incident, without attempting to analyze it, is just one of those situations that we are struggling with as a country. It's not just on a college campus, it's in our country.
The victims were shot inside the UNLV's business building just 3 miles from Mandalay Bay, where a gunman opened fire during the Route 91 Music Festival on October 1, 2017, killing 60 people and wounding at least 413. Nevada voters demanded tougher gun laws after the 1 October tragedy. In 2019, bump stocks became illegal under Nevada state and federal law, and in January 2020, Nevada's red flag law went into effect. Still, gun law experts say the state can do better as it does not require firearm registration and has no assault weapon restrictions at this time. In Las Vegas, Anna Cui, Eagle News, we live in extraordinary times.
It used to be a dream destination for immigrants. Today, however, many prospective newcomers are scratching Canada off the list of countries where they might realize that dream. Meanwhile, for many who already live there, they say it might be time to pull the welcome mat for a while to stem the tide of newcomers. Thomas I. Likeness reports.
By the time we ring in the new year in Canada, more than 465,000 immigrants will have moved here during the last 12 months. And the influx of people has created problems for both those living here and newcomers alike. Quite simply, the country isn't prepared to handle that many new arrivals. Adding 500,000 people to the population has put a strain on housing, on schools, on the healthcare system, and on the economy. Newcomers are experiencing an economic shock when they try to find a place to live. They come up against the twin problems of cost and availability. In major cities like Vancouver and Toronto, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is nearly $2,900 a month. That's nearly 122,000 pesos. For an unskilled worker making minimum wage, that's more than they make in a month. Rents are less than half that where I live in Alberta, in Western Canada, but the challenge here is finding a place. Vacancy rates here are expected to hover around 1% for the next year. Nationally, the vacancy rate is under 2%. The problem is the result of the housing supply failing to keep up with population growth, much of it fueled by immigration. The pandemic has made things worse. Canada's Housing Agency says to reach affordability, another 3.5 million units have to be built, and that's not going to happen soon. Which brings us back to newcomers. Some have simply given up. They're returning home or looking for another country to move to. According to a Reuters News report, in the first 6 months of this year, some 42,000 people left Canada. The federal government has made immigration its main weapon to fight the challenge of an aging and shrinking population. But unless it comes up with a plan to accommodate all of the new arrivals, the economy will falter, making things worse for everyone, Canadians and immigrants alike. Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Americans will hit the polls in a little less than a year to choose a new president. A majority of those polled show little enthusiasm for the two likely candidates: Democratic incumbent President Joe Biden and likely Republican nominee and former President Donald Trump. Jeff Sanidad tells us more.
Several opinion polls in the last month suggest both candidates are unpopular with most Americans. According to a new poll from the Associated Press and the North Center for Public Affairs, 56% of those asked say they would be very or somewhat dissatisfied with Biden as the Democratic nominee. For Trump, the numbers aren't any better. 58% don't like him. Other polls think these polls show similar results. Looking at their campaigns, the platforms could not be any more different. Biden touts a recovering economy with inflation being tamed, low unemployment, and a strong stock market. But this doesn't seem to be resonating with people. Trump focuses on people's anger, their victim mentality, saying he's one of them. He claims he is the victim of a Biden-inspired conspiracy to keep him out of office. Trump faces 91 criminal charges. He denies any wrongdoing. But with each indictment, his popularity among supporters increases. Trump plays to his supporters prejudices, blaming immigration for many of the country's woes. While Trump makes Biden's age as an issue, he neglects to mention that he is only 3 years younger. Biden supporters say the election is about the future of democracy in the United States, saying another Trump presidency will evolve into a dictatorship. Opinion polls show the two men are in a dead heat. The election will likely be settled in a half a dozen key states. In the United States, the president is elected indirectly through a complicated system called the Electoral College. A candidate could win the overall popular vote but lose the election under this process. Whatever the outcome of the 2024 presidential election, the U.S. will likely remain polarized. Jeff Sanidad, Washington, D.C., Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
A World Health Organization spending reports shows that in 2021, global expenditure on health reached a new high. The report says $9.8 trillion US dollars, or 10% of global gross domestic product, were spent on public health. But despite this increase across the world, government health spending still decreased in low-income countries. Rosel Feria shares with us WHO's call for governments to prioritize investing in universal health coverage. Here's Health is Well.
At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2021, 11% of the world's population lived in countries that spent less than $50 US dollars per person per year. This is a stark contrast to the average per capita spending on health in high-income countries, which was around $4,000 US dollars yearly. Low-income countries that represent 9% of the world population accounted for only 0.25% of global health expenditure. However, during the pandemic, even as economies and societies reeled from the massive disruptions it caused, WHO says record spending on health in 2021 demonstrated how countries prioritized public health. But going forward, as countries now shift focus to deal with economic priorities, the report highlights that the scale of growth in public health spending observed during the pandemic is unlikely to be sustained. WHO's Universal Health Coverage Goal, or UHC, means that all people have access to the full range of quality health services they need when and where they need them without financial hardship. WHO says to achieve UHC, countries need to strengthen their health systems based on a primary health care or PHC approach. The health agency says PHC is the most inclusive, equitable, cost-effective, and efficient approach to enhance people's physical and mental health as well as social well-being. Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C. Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Extraordinary stories from Thomas I Likeness today, from a UNESCO site in Vietnam, not bluer than blue anymore, to saying good riddance to the not-so-happy things in 2023. These and more on Correspondent at Large.
And now news and commentary from around the globe. As 2023 wraps up, there'll be more of the same when we break out the new calendar. I'm referring to the wars, Ukraine, Gaza, and there are others. No end in sight to any of these conflicts. I want to focus on Gaza for a moment. The humanitarian situation there is deplorable. Citizens bearing the brunt of the war, as you can see in these images here. This is a lineup for food. Worldwide, on both sides of the conflict, people are rallying for a ceasefire to put an end to scenes like these, which sadly are just another day in Gaza. A negotiated settlement doesn't appear to be in the cards. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vows to keep fighting until Hamas is destroyed. And Hamas gives no indications it will surrender. This is how bad things are. Hospitals pretty much destroyed, not enough ambulances to transport the wounded. It comes down to this: horse-drawn carts hauling the injured to the few remaining medical facilities. Sadly, these events don't follow a calendar and conclude at year-end. In Bangladesh, they've come up with a small solution to a huge problem. The Southeast Asian country is one of the nations most at risk of flooding. And people there have come up with an ingenious solution to help people survive a deluge. This is what's known as a kudibari, or a tiny house. These resilient homes are made on bamboo stilts rising out of the floodwaters. They're easy to move if needed. Architect Marina Tabassum says these homes offer hope to millions living in flood-prone regions.
This is a sort of a climate adaptation, climate preparedness project also for us. That's how we also see it, because it's an intervention into the vernacular architecture.
When the water rises, residents simply move to the second story. They say they don't like having to leave their homes because often when they return, all of their possessions have been looted. Environmentalists are feeling blue over Vietnam's Ha Long Bay. The UNESCO site is losing its famous turquoise hue. This is one of Vietnam's most popular tourist attractions. More than 7 million people last year visited the bay's blue-green waters and rainforest-topped limestone islands. But the water is not as blue as it used to be. Pollution and development taking away the color. A surrounding town with its luxury hotels, amusement park, and thousands of new homes have severely damaged the ecosystem. Pollution, also a huge problem, with both human and plastic waste fouling the waters. Locals long to see the water as blue as it used to be. And how are you ushering 2023 out? In New York City, a number of people gathered in Times Square this past Thursday to mark Good Riddance Day. Good Riddance Day has been going on for 17 years now. New Yorkers burn notes with bad memories. Schoolteacher Tamara Litz says for her, 2023 was tough.
It was a lot. I think that was predominantly just very hard, upsetting, tiring, scary, and just ready to just move on. It's been enough.
People also share their hopes for 2024. They write down their wishes on pieces of paper that will be used as part of the confetti for the New Year's Eve ball drop. This is how consultant Jake Terry is looking ahead.
We like to choose a word each year, so my word this year is going to be faith. and just believing in what we're trying to accomplish and believing in our dreams.
And as we prepare to bid goodbye to 2023, take a moment to reflect on the good things that happened this past year. You know, despite the chaos, the violence, the calamities, not all was bad. On behalf of the Eagle News staff, I wish you all the best in 2024. Happy New Year. And I'll be back next year in 7 days' time. And until then, I wish you all peace, joy, and happiness in the ensuing week. Thomas I. Likeness, Correspondent at Large, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Last October, Australians soundly rejected a proposal to give the country's Indigenous peoples a greater voice in government. In a referendum on October 14, the proposal to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders went down to defeat after 60% of voters said no. Emi Kapili Taroha has more on Oceania at a Glance.
The voice vote result is a huge blow to the country's Indigenous population. The proposal would have enshrined in the Constitution an Indigenous voice to Parliament. It would have acted as an advocate for the country's Aboriginal minority. Aboriginal leaders reacted with sorrow and frustration. They say the country's white majority ignored a chance to atone for the country's colonial past and the brutal dispossession of Aboriginal people. Indigenous leader Esme Pamblet blames misinformation for the outcome.
One of the reasons I think we didn't get the yes vote was people had misinformation for a start, and a lot of people don't know about Aboriginal people. They don't live in our communities, they don't work in our communities, and they don't know what we go through. They don't know the extent of dispossession, and they don't know the history.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese urged the divided nation to heal in the spirit of unity. He promised his government will work to deliver Indigenous recognition. His options, however, remain unclear. Emi Kapili Taroha, Brisbane, Australia, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
As we say goodbye to yet another year, it's always empowering to begin the new one by setting goals and carrying on those we set in the past year. But studies show that 92% of adults will not follow through on their New Year's resolution. Today, we will hear from a strategic leadership coach about ways we can reach the goals we set for ourselves. Jane Kathleen Gregorio tells us more.
With the new year upon us, many are ready to start their journey towards self-improvement. According to a recent survey from Statista, America's top 4 New Year's resolutions include saving more money, exercising more, eating healthier, and spending more time with family and friends. However, studies show that 23% of adults quit their resolutions within the first week of the year. By February, 43% will have forgotten their goals, and only 9% will have completed them all year long. You might be wondering, what could be the cause of this? Let's hear from other viewers from around the country as they share their opinions.
In my opinion, people fail to nail their New Year's resolutions because they always say what they want to do, but they don't follow through with the plan.
Working out. I tend to do it every year. I do it for a little bit, but then I stop completely. And so I feel like, in my opinion, I feel like it's just kind of life happens and you kind of just get busy.
As to why people fail their resolutions, I think there's a couple reasons. One, they think of a resolution, but then they wait until January 1st to start acting on that resolution, and I think they lose some momentum that way. The other thing is I think people maybe bite off goals that are too large for them to do, or maybe goals that they don't care about as much to see, or care about enough to see throughout the rest of the year.
Today we had a chance to speak with Taryn De La Rosa, a strategic leadership coach with vision towards leadership, as she shared some pro tips on how to crush those goals.
I specialize in leadership coaching, team building, and organizational development strategies. My focus is always on refining leadership skills, fostering effective team dynamics, and implementing tailored strategies for our organizational growth for our clients. Some of the things that I've learned is that you can't set unrealistic expectations. Sometimes that leads to disappointment and frustration. However, that's not to diminish your dream, because you should always go out after what you want, what seems perhaps impossible, but always assessing your current resources. Being able to achieve your goals and working towards your goals, it's not going to be linear. It's not going to be just from here A to Z, right? There's going to be so many different other things that you're going to experience, pitfalls, the wins. So some habits that can contribute to personal or professional growth would be goal setting specific goals and assessing the resources you have in order to achieve those goals. Continuously learning, continuously working to develop and seeking workshops and boot camps and things that can continue to educate you on your respective field or about your respective goal. What do you do once you get there? How do we maintain it? Always continuously seeking information, learning is going to be one of the key points to being successful when it comes to achieving your goals. And then in addition to that, we have effective communication. Learning how to effectively communicate, and that's not just learning how to speak well, right? Part of effective communication is also active listening. Listening to understand rather than listening to respond. That is a huge game changer when it comes to working towards your goals. Networking is a huge part of it. Being adaptable, being able to pivot on a dime, self-care, taking time to just be in the moment, not be in the future or in the past, but simply be in the moment and have that what we call attitude of gratitude. I know people think that that's a little corny, but it is something that has really helped me throughout my life, is having an attitude of gratitude for where I'm at, for where I've been, and for where I'm going. So it's always helped me. Most important is having empathy for others. When you're working towards goals, people don't often achieve these goals by themselves. Sometimes you need a great support system to do that. And that's, not to say that that's always the case, but having empathy for others, for situations, for understanding that you too may have been in a space where you were struggling to achieve your goals. Having empathy for others and giving back, that can only bring around the positive and the want to continue going, right? Is having that empathy for others and wanting to achieve your goals, so that maybe perhaps you could inspire someone else to do that as well.
In Corpus Christi, Texas, I'm Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
And before we let you go, here's our photo of the week. This is the sun rising in Barstow, California. The city of Barstow is in San Bernardino County in the Mojave Desert of Southern California. It is home to the U.S. Army National Training Center at Fort Irwin, Marine Corps Logistics Base, Barstow, and NASA's Goldstone Deep Space Network. Thank you all for joining us again. If there are stories or topics you want us to share with you, just comment below. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and X at Eagle News Live. I am AJ Gonzalez. We live in extraordinary times. From our Eagle News Live family to yours, Happy New Year, stay happy and healthy, everyone.